The rain always makes things more interesting in racing, especially F1. And we saw that today. We had about 5 formation laps, a couple hours of delay, maybe a little bit less than a couple hours. But the F1 sprint did get underway at Spa and for the Belgian Grand Prix. So we did end up seeing a sprint. It was 4 laps shorter than it was originally scheduled, but we did indeed get a sprint. Oscar Piastri led for a bit. Pierre Gasly got on the podium. Do we call the sprint a podium, or what's the rule there? But it was a weird top 3 that I don't think we would have predicted at the beginning of the season for any race, of whether it's sprint or Grand Prix. But of course, at the end of the day, Max Verstappen still won. So yes, but it was quite the interesting sprint with the changing conditions. It was pouring down rain before the race. Everyone was on the extreme wet tires, and then the sun came out. And so suddenly it's like, okay, like it's going to dry up here pretty quick. So by lap 1, I mean, before they even started the non-safety car laps, people were pitting. Oscar Piastri pitted. I think one of the Ferraris maybe pitted. I can't remember exactly who. Perez. Half the field pitted, half the field stayed out. And because of this, because Max Verstappen and the other half of the field opted to stay out and continue running, they were a little bit slower on the extreme wets. The conditions had really dried up for the intermediates to be used. And because of this, Oscar Piastri took the lead for the first time ever. Now, it's not a main event. It's not the Grand Prix. But still, he was leading an F1 race of sorts. He was holding on to the lead pretty well there. About a second is what it was. And then Fernando Alonso crashed. He spun out on the long left-hander. I don't know the turn name, but the kind of triple left-hander going downhill. And he got stuck in the gravel, so there was a safety car. And that allowed the field to bunch back up. And on the restart right after El Rouge and Radion, I'm probably pronouncing those wrong. Verstappen was able to pass Piastri, and he ran away, won this thing by almost 7 seconds. But it got a little bit more interesting back in the points finishing positions. Of course, positions 1 through 8 are the points positions in a sprint race. Lewis Hamilton and Sergio Perez made some contact. They were coming down near that long, like off the right-handed turn near the end of the track, somewhere in the 3rd sector, right before the long, not a straight, but the long curve where you can basically floor it the entire time. But right there, they were racing side by side. Perez missed the turn a bit. Hamilton got to his inside, and then Hamilton, lost a little bit of grip and hit Perez in the side. It put a hole in Perez's side pod. Perez tumbled down the order, fell backwards, slid off the track, and they just opted to retire the car because it was a sprint. And Hamilton was handed a 5-second penalty. It's such a racing incident what happened there. Like, he didn't spin him out, he didn't wreck him, but he did make contact that ended up being damaging. I don't know about a penalty there. I guess Hamilton was more at fault. Tough incident to judge if you ask me. Nothing dirty, nothing egregious. I guess you got to hand the penalty out there. I don't know. I didn't think it was that deserving of a penalty. If he had spun him out, I would have said yes, penalty, but I don't know. It's tough to call. I think just because of the damage it caused, because of Perez falling back, I think that's why they opted to give the penalty. That's just my opinion. But here are your points finishers, by the way. Max Verstappen extends his championship lead as if he needed to do that anymore. Oscar Piastri with a very strong second-place finish, 7 points for him. So really good for McLaren. They are fighting for, 3rd in the Constructors? Maybe 2nd if they can continue to push like they have the past couple of weeks. Maybe they could get in that fight for 2nd, but I think that's still a bit of a long shot. Pierre Gasly 3rd, a really good weekend for Alpine, or a really good race for Alpine. He was one of those guys that pitted early, passed a couple guys on pit road. I think Ferrari had a big bad stop. So he was able to make up a position or two there. But he ends up 3rd, a really good haul of points for him in the sprint. Both the Ferraris next, speaking of 4th and 5th, good for the constructor standings for him. Lando Norris 6th, picks up, what is that, 3 points there. So him and Piastri pick up a grand total of 10 points. So they scored the most points in terms of constructors, I think. Yeah, because Ferrari scored 9 points. So good result for them. Hamilton, him hitting Perez, that 5-second penalty ends up demoting him from 4th down to 7th. Only 2 points for him, 1 point for Russell. So Mercedes does get a few points there. Just out of the points, Ocon, Ricciardo, Stroll were the next 3. But yeah, it was a pretty fun sprint race. The delay and the 5 formation laps, I get that they want to be safe. Spa is a dangerous track. The conditions were a bit treacherous, but still a fun sprint. Looking forward to the main event tomorrow. I think it's supposed to rain. I can't remember if it is or not. Maybe not. If it does, it could be a fun race, or it could be Spa 2021 all over again, and we don't want that. So if it rains, rain lightly, please, or like pour rain before the race, and then the race don't rain, so we can have that changing conditions. But thanks for watching this video. We will talk about the main event tomorrow. I'm working on this today, okay? It'll be different tomorrow, I promise, but we will see a different background. But F1 Grand Prix tomorrow, NASCAR race tomorrow. We'll talk about both of those. Thanks for watching. Hope you have a great rest of your day, night, or evening, wherever you are.